What's up, guys? It's finally not insanely hot as hell out here in the garage. So today what we're gonna do is do this chain adjustment for you guys because many of you guys have asked for it. So we're gonna just get straight into it. Now, you definitely don't need to have a motorcycle lift or a stand of any sort. In fact, this process should be done on the actual kickstand of the motorcycle, at least per Kawasaki's user and maintenance manual. So I personally like doing it on this. For almost every bike, I will do my chain adjustment off of this, but we will go ahead and follow the manual like it's told. We'll go ahead and put this thing on its kickstand only, and I'm gonna leave it on the stand because it simply makes it easier for me to record it for you guys. So let's get it done. All right, now that we have the motorcycle on the kickstand, next thing we need to do is verify the chain adjustment. And now by the manual, and of course the sticker here on the side of the swing arm, it's asking for 25 to 35 millimeters, or an inch to an inch and a quarter. In addition to that, it's also telling us we need to measure at the bottom of the chain here. Push up, we measure the bottom of the chain up here. So you can see mine is definitely gonna be a little bit more than an inch. So we also wanna get in between the center of our chain. So I'm gonna put my measuring tape, the bottom of the chain to the bottom of the chain, for us is 2.5 inches right now. So we are quite a ways out of spec, and you can tell it's real sloppy, and you can slap this chain guard, which is not good. So we definitely need to tighten this thing up. Let's go through that process. So you can see the bike comes with this rubber boot. We'll go ahead and pull it off, and that is gonna reveal this cotter pin that we need to remove. A pair of needle nose is pretty decent for doing this, because all we're gonna try and do here is bend this thing back as straight as we can so that we don't have to run out and buy another one of these, and we can reuse it. We got it fairly straight there, and there we go. So there's our cotter pin removed, and we should be able to put it back in there. Next step is to get this nice and loose, which is a 24 millimeter socket. And on the other side here, we have a 19 millimeter wrench that we can put on here. So we'll hold this wrench while we loosen up the castle nut with our 1/2 inch socket wrench. Whew, and that is really on there. There we go. Got her nice and loosened up. Doesn't have to be crazy. And now the next thing to do is gonna be to actually loosen up this locking nut. We have a 14 millimeter on the back here, and we have a 12 millimeter on the front here. So we can break that locking nut loose and just get it out of the way. So we'll do the same thing on the other side. Use our 14 mil and loosen up that locking nut. So at this point, we're gonna pay attention to this little bracket and these little lines that are on the bracket. So you'll wanna clean it up, clean up both sides, because these need to be the same on both sides of the motorcycle so that our wheel is straight and basically aligned. By looking at this, I have one line, two line, and then the third line is pretty much completely covered. So what we're gonna do is take our 14 millimeter, and I'm gonna try and show you guys what the chain will do as well. You should be able to see that chain get loose and tight as I change and or rotate this wrench. We want it tighter, and the best thing you can do is do these at the same exact time. So let's say I'm gonna do a full 1/2 a turn. So I'm gonna tighten this thing by 1 full 1/2 turn. I'm gonna come over on this other side, 1 full 1/2 a turn on this side. Now, just by messing with the chain, you can tell that's nowhere near enough. So I'm gonna do one more full 1/2 turn. Now you could do this in quarter turns if you want, but those 2 turns have gotten me pretty close already to see where you're at, 1.5 inches now with just basically 1 full rotation. And you can look down at your markers there and see that I've pretty much covered up that third line. So there's 1 line, 2 line, that third line is pretty much covered up. And then you'll want to come over to the other side of the motorcycle and verify if you're in the same spot. And I am nowhere near it. So that's annoying, but can happen. This is the kind of thing that you guys are gonna run into, so this is perfect. Let's see if I can show you guys what I'm talking about here. So you can see there that there's 1, 2, 3, and I'm almost halfway to the 4th line. Nowhere near good enough. But before I call it a complete fail and try and adjust anything else, The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna shove a screwdriver in between this chain and sprocket here, and we are going to roll it in. So what that's gonna do for us is force the whole rim and tire back against these adjustment blocks. So by doing that, I just looked at the other side and it moved a little bit, but not much. So I know for sure I'm still way off. So I'll get my screwdriver out. I'm gonna come back to this side and we are going to try and get ourselves back in there. And sadly, what needs to happen here is we have to loosen up. So you're gonna run into this right here. So that's the part where you start getting frustrated, at least most people do. So we're gonna put our screwdriver in here, force it back again, and now you can see that we have slightly moved forward. So I'm gonna go a little bit more. So now I'm about just before the third line now. So I have 1 full line, 2 full lines, 3 full lines, and the 4th line is just barely back here. So I'm almost halfway through. In fact, I'm gonna just go ahead and make it halfway through. So I'm going to loosen this side and make it identical to the other one, or at least try to. And by doing so, there's no way for me to get there. So I am barely past that 3rd line, and it is way, way too tight. So I'm gonna loosen this other side a little bit, which is getting me just barely in front of the 3rd line. Now that I got them pretty much lined up, just a little bit behind what they were, I'll go ahead and get that screwdriver out of there and we can verify our slack. Exactly 1 inch and 1/4. So that was the right measurement, but things change as you go ahead and put the bike together. So now that we're in the exact same spot on both sides, the next step is gonna be to put our screwdriver back in. We're gonna run it tight so that forces everything together. We could run our locking nuts down. We can get out our torque wrench, and we need to be at 72 foot-pounds, which is the torque spec for our little castle nut here. I don't like to use a torque wrench to run things down, so I'll do it here with a ratchet just to get it close. Make sure you grab the other side if need be. There we go. We got our 72 foot-pounds. Now that everything is been torqued down, we could find our 2 at the bottom of the chain and find our 1 1/4 at the top of the bottom of the chain. So you can tell it doesn't take a lot of tools to do this job. I'd say the only thing that annoys me is, in my opinion, the manual says this is at its maximum 1.4 inches. I don't like the chain to be that tight, but I want to show you guys by the manual what it's asking you to do. To be honest with you, I will be making this just a little bit looser because I don't like it this tight. Personal opinion, I guess. So obviously from here, the easiest thing to do is to just simply put your cotter pin back in, tighten down your locking nuts. You could torque them if you want, or 2 ratchets, put them on there and just give a nice little squeeze like that. That's usually how I do a locking nut. But in the manual, it tells you the torque spec if that's what you want to do. That pretty much covers it, guys. Pretty easy job to do. Like you say, you don't need a lot of tools. A torque wrench, a screwdriver, a 14, a 19 millimeter, a 12 millimeter, and then a 24 millimeter for this, and maybe a pair of needle nose to get this chingadera on and off. But other than that, it's pretty easy to do. Verifying and checking is pretty easy to do. And like I said, you need to be doing that like every 600 miles. So I hope this was helpful for you guys. And I'm gonna go ahead and loosen mine about 1/4 to 1/2 inch. So to put it more around 1.5 inches to 1.75 inches, because I would feel better about that slight amount of slack, but that's up to you guys. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.